Hello everybody and welcome to my first ranking of all 7 Galactic Legends, including Jabba. This is my attempt at a comprehensive ranking, trying to give a fair shake to every Galactic Legend across all game modes and other categories you might think of for Galactic Legends, like ease of acquisition and the quality of their requirements. There's 13 categories, you'll see them as we go along, but most of them are GAC, TW, Conquest, Raids, stuff like that. And I have a few premises that I want to go over before I get into this ranking to kind of share my thought process on things. And the first premise is this is not a prescriptive farm order. I am not suggesting that you farm Galactic Legends if you're a new player in this order, like best to worst, and actually far from it. I think some in the middle would probably be better to go for first than those at the very top. Next, higher is better. This is on a 10-point scale. This is rated 1 to 10. So 10 being the best, 1 being the worst, although I kind of shy away from using actual 10s and actual 1s. I don't know, I'm not even sure if either of those pop up in this because kind of hard to me to picture something being completely perfect or completely useless. So don't expect to see a ton of those here. The next premise is not all categories are equal. Each has a specific weighted value, the top being 3. There's one where it's kind of a quasi 4 weight, and then the weights go all the way down to 1, but the most common weighting for a category is 2. So if something I think is less important, I give it a weight of 1. If it's more important, I give it a weight of 3 or 3 or 2 or something. Premise number 4, all Galactic Legends are presumed to have their best teams available, and this is pretty important to consider characters such as Rey, because Rey makes great use of Commander Ahsoka Tano right now, and you would presume that, okay, only General Kenobi or Jedi Master Kenobi has access to Commander Tano, but I'm assuming that each Galactic Legend has the full array of their best potential available to them for each consideration. That's very important because it does change things quite a bit in some cases. Premise number 5, this is a subjective evaluation based on my own experience and observations, and I don't have Jabba. So Jabba, my evaluations of him might be a bit lacking. I've had to just look up how he does in different game modes and compare how I've performed against him or seen him do just in other videos. So I don't have that first-hand knowledge for him specifically, but I hope I gave him at least a fair shake. And another thing I'm considering, which I didn't write down here, is I am considering Datacrons in PvP modes because that's just what the game is right now. And I'm considering the current sets available, which are set 4 and set 5, and that might not seem fair, but that's what the game is now. It's a shifting meta. Different characters are going to have different strength in different sets, and set 4 is almost done in a month, and maybe at some point in the future I'll do this again and see how things pan out after those dust. Alright, now the first set of categories we have are all GAC related. And I have them split into 4. At first I was thinking about just doing 2, like GAC offense or GAC defense, or just 5v5, 3v3. But they're all quite different. 5v5 offense and defense are different from 3v3 offense and defense, and each defense is different from its own offense, if that makes sense or not. So they're all rated at 2, but GAC is the most important game mode in my opinion. And I'm going to go over each set together, like 5v5 as a whole together. So without further ado, those numbers are, we got double 7s for Jabba. You know, he's decent on offense, he can take out a lot of stuff, but you want him on defense more. And the reason his defensive score isn't as high right now is because he gets beat pretty handily by Inquisitors right now. And that's a pretty big weakness to have, so that's why it gets hurt a little bit. But 7s for both, nothing to sneer at. Lord Vader, just completely a powerhouse. You know, maybe could have even gotten a 10 on 5v5 defense. He is just so hard to deal with right now. There's a lot of ways to handle him, but there's plenty of ways to prevent those counters, like Character Sordo throws a monkey wrench in a lot of those. And he's great on offense as well. You can solo a ton of stuff with him right now, but the best use of him is on defense. And for offense, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't feel super confident going against a full JMK team with him alone, unless he has like stacking mastery or something from the level 9. But he's still amazing. Jedi Master Kenobi, I still give him the 9 for offense, even though he can't handle Lord Vader or Jabba. but he's just amazing on offense. He's great at keeping his team alive. It's just such a threat, and defense as well. There are some good counters to him right now, like Darth Vader can handle him. Lord Vader can handle him. You know, Jabba is kind of his kryptonite, but he's still, to me, seems like the best offensive Galactic Legend for 5v5. And even though I am considering Datacrons, I'm not like only thinking of them. Like, I know he's gonna be the best when the dust settles. And he's just gonna have like one weakness in Jabba. Sith Eternal Emperor, really bad on defense, good on offense, but he's limited because he gets bad banners, and you know he can't beat everything. Like he requires such a wide variety of characters and a motley crew to take out, like JMK. He dominates JML. He's pretty good against Rey, although it's kind of a coin flip. He has trouble against Supreme Leader Kylo Ren, who isn't as good on defense, but he's got his number. And Jedi Master Luke, I kind of would want him higher, but I couldn't justify giving him more than a 7 because he has trouble with a lot of stuff like Lord Vader, Jabba, and you know I could give him higher. He gets a lot done with very little. He can take kind of a trash Jedi team in and make them all hit like trucks. And on defense, he's kind of susceptible. You can take Sith Eternal with barely anything and wreck his face, and you can wreck his face with Dash without even Galactic Legends. Kylo, great, strong on offense. Has trouble with Lord Vader in 5s right now, but I have been able to handle him in Arena, so let's see if that translates to 5v5 when it comes around. And then Rey, you know, this is where the thing I said about each Galactic Legend has their best possible team available to them. That's when this comes into play, because Rey, you know, she can use Cat. And that allows her to take out Lord Vader. So just for that, she's getting kind of a boost up to 7, whereas normally you don't want her to counter a lot of these other Galactic Legends. And on defense, adding Ben has complicated things a bit. And in 5v5, that it's kind of hard to work around. And she's got a lot of other great characters with her now. Dash kind of hangs out with Rey all the time, but very strong. So she's 8 on defense and 7 on offense, because other than Dash, I don't know. I'm not really singling out other Galactic Legends to take out with Rey. And now we're going to look at 3v3. I'll try to be briefer on this since we talked about most of their strengths in 5v5 and just note on the changes. Jabba, I think he's a little bit worse in 3v3 on offense. He doesn't have his full complement, which really wants. It's kind of hard to pick between Lando and Leia. It's kind of weird because in the movie, they weren't even on his side, but whatever. He doesn't have both of them available, so he becomes a little bit weaker. On defense, he would be weaker, but I don't think Inquisitors work as well without the full team. So he kind of gains some extra viability on defense that he didn't have in 5s, and he also loses some that he had in 5s. Lord Vader, I think he's stronger in 3s than in 5s on offense. You know, I don't know if he can solo every team in the game, but he can come kind of close to it, except maybe the counter teams that are good against him. So I don't know, but he's pretty much always on defense, so it's hard to actually tell from data. Jedi Master Kenobi, pretty much the same. He's actually a little bit better on offense because he can take out Jabba. So maybe if I was doing decimal points, it'd be like a 9.2 or like an 8.8 here. But I'm not using decimals on just the static ranking. It's only going to be at the end ranking or rating. Sith Eternal Emperor, he gets a little bit better on offense because he in 3s because he has less characters to die off, so you're doing better with banners. So a little bit of a bump there. Jedi Master Luke, pretty much the same. You know, I like him in both. I think he's a little bit stronger in 5s. But in 3s, he's still pretty good, although he's not really a Galactic Legend counter machine. You can kind of take out Rey and Kylo and maybe see sometimes with them, but you can't touch Lord Vader or Jabba, and you can get pretty close. He can beat JMK like 70% of the time or something, so he's still pretty good. And then Slicker is better in 3v3 on offense, if for no other reason than he can take out Lord Vader more than anyone else, and that is kind of the elephant in the room in GAC these days. Similar on defense, you know, kind of vulnerable, not as good as offense. And then Rey is kind of as solid on defense just as much as in 5s, although she is vulnerable to Starkiller right now, so she's not going to get a 9 or anything. and she can get beat by other Galactic Legends, but she puts a stop to a lot of tricks that used to be just ironclad, like JMK and Cat. You can't take out a character turn 1 if you have Ben in the defense starting lineup. And on offense, she's not as good as in 5s because she can't take out Lord Vader, but she's still pretty good. You can take out Malgus with her, and a lot of other stuff. And then the full rating, what I'm covering up here says overall GAC. The full rating is 6.75 for Jabba, 8.75 for Lord Vader, 8.5 for JMK. So Lord Vader is in the lead for GAC at this point. Not too surprising to me. Sith Eternal Emperor is last, even though he's kind of considered a PvP-oriented Galactic Legend. He's still not that great, in my opinion. JML 6.5, SLKR 7.25, and tied with Rey, and they came out at the same time, so kind of fitting. I think Rey's a little bit underrated, as you're going to see in this ranking. But yeah, that is it for GAC. Next up, we got Territory Wars, and another problem with this is the upper end of Territory Wars is kind of opaque to me. I'm not in a top Territory War guild. We are over 400 million, and we win like over half our matches. But we're not top guild, and the top guilds are pretty secretive over their Territory War strategies, so the creme de la creme is unknown to me to a certain extent, but this is the best I can do based on what I know. For offense and defense, we got Jabba, a little bit weaker on offense because, like in GAC, he's more of a timeout risk, so you want him on defense. A win in defense, if you time out and it's tie, defense wins. So that's why he is better on defense than offense, although he is pretty good on offense as well if you choose to use him there. Lord Vader's an 8 in both, and he's a little bit weaker on defense because in Territory War guilds, at least my guild likes to use a lot of cheese, like the Tarkin cheese, and it just depends who you go against. That can be countered easily if you put like Canderous in the starting lineup for Lord Vader or something. But there's just more ways when the whole team is working together to get around Lord Vader. So I don't know, he seems like a little bit not as good in Territory War defense, and also you have Rey as a threat there. JMK, awesome, good on offense and defense, probably the best on offense overall without Datacrons. He only has trouble with Jabba, and who knows, maybe that'll change in the future with different Datacrons. But he's good on defense, but he's not the best because he can fall to Jabba, Lord Vader, and Rey, Cat, even if you do it right. Like, if Cat goes with Rey instead of Lord JMK, she makes Rey amazing and not Jedi Master Kenobi. So those stat boosts are incredible, and they help out with any light side team. So I don't know. I think that would be disputed a lot by people, but that's just my take on it. The Sith Eternal Emperor, kind of similar. I think he's even worse on defense in Territory Wars because it's just, I don't know. You don't want to use him. You want to use him on offense because he has a lot of utility, and even though he might not get the best banners, which in Territory War is also important, like you're going to be looking at more 16s for him, so he gets a little bit lower. Jedi Master Luke is great, but it's hard for me to rank him above 7 because he can't handle Lord Vader or really Jabba. He's kind of iffy against JMK in a lot of lineups. And he's not really a defensive threat either, though he is much better than Sith Eternal. Supreme Leader Kylo, he's great on offense, and a lot of this kind of looks similar to 5v5 GAC, but it is a little bit different. You don't usually see him on defense, so that's why he gets a 6. And the Rey gets a 9, mainly because she can take Lord Vader to task. She can take him out right now with Rey dash, or with a dash, and even if you don't have Cat with her, she can kind of win with like Queel and Bam and IG-11, so you don't even necessarily need Cat. So she's great just to take out one of the best defenses in Territory War. But otherwise, as she can take out the Supreme Leader Kylo, JML, I think she could even take out JMK if you give her Cat. Without Cat, it's going to be kind of dicey. And I don't know about Jabba, honestly. But she is quite strong, and I think she deserves these scores, although I foresee people disagreeing. And then for overall, And maybe if you were paying close attention, you might have noticed these said 3 times, but that was an earlier consideration of mine. I'm sure some people might disagree with my decision to bump these down to a 2 times instead of a 3 times weight. But I don't consider Territory Wars as important as GAC or even close. So it's like half the ranking when you consider that, and there's only one variant of it. You only get like 4 a month. In GAC, you get 9 a month, and even if they were the same amount a month, I would think they'd be roughly equal. But even so, these values, offense and defense, are equal, so their Territory War score is just those two averaged together. But as we'll see later, they don't always come out nice and clean, like in PvE, because there's different values. So Jabba is 6.5, Lord Vader 8, JMK 8.5, C is a 5, JML is 6.5, Slicker 7, and then Rey 8.5. And we got a full PvP rating for each character, and that is 6.67 for Jabba, 8.5 for Lord Vader, tied with Kenobi, 5.5 for C, 6.5 JML, 7.17 for Slicker, and 7.67 for Rey. I really think Rey deserves that. She's great in PvP right now. She might take a hit in a couple months, but right now she is doing amazing. Next up, we got PvE, and this is a lot easier for me to evaluate than PvP. I can see disagreements from all sides coming in PvP, but in PvP, it's a lot easier for me to evaluate. And in my opinion, Conquest is very, very important, so I give it a 3 times rating. And GOTB and HSDR are also very important, so they get 2 times. But Challenge Pit, I do not consider very important, so it gets 1 times. You can't solo the C Pit on your own. You need the whole guild, and the rewards are not worth like putting in a ton. Like it doesn't matter if you're getting like 20 million of a score or just like a couple million, because the rewards don't matter. I've gotten better rewards from the bottom ranks than the top ranks, and they made the arrow magnifiers spread out so evenly across the whole thing. It's not really a concern of how well you perform in C Pit, so that's lower. And then Assault Battles Plus is like Assault Battles plus any extra stuff you might get. This would be like Galactic Challenges, but they're always changing, so it's not a major thing. It also means any kind of extra goodies you can get, like the goodies you get with Jabba. So that's what that means. It's still only worth ×1, although you're getting a lot of extra stuff with Jabba, so who knows. So first up, we got Conquest, and for Conquest, the scores are 7, 7, 8, 3, 9, 5, 9. And I think Rey and Jedi Master Luke are massively important in Conquest. Rey was more important in the last one we had, and then Jedi Master Luke is great in this one because he can help get a lot of Jedi kills. But even disregarding what the exact Conquest is right now or the previous one, these guys are great at keeping their whole team alive, which is very important in Conquest. And they help the whole team do a lot of damage. Rey is probably the best at keeping the team alive, and the JML is the best at kind of diffusing the damage. He's been useful in every Conquest so far, so he absolutely deserves this 9. Rey absolutely deserves a 9 as well. Right now in the current Conquest, you can get the old Ben, Leia, and Farm Boy Luke feat done with her, and like Dash or another strong support, and he just wipes out the whole team. So Dash is kind of her lifter unit right now in all game modes. Jedi Master Kenobi is also great. He gets an 8 instead of 9 because most of his... he's not dealing a lot of debuffs, which worked well under Amplify Agony, but in the current set, where Zealous Ambition is kind of king, he doesn't have a ton of supports to work with, except like Padme, but he's very solid at getting a safe win, preventing people from dying, and getting that insta-kill with Cat right off is very strong. Some might argue that he could be higher, but he's not great at keeping other characters alive as well, weaker characters, or he's not as good at helping weaker characters get kills. Lord Vader's stock took a real tank when they got rid of Amplify Agony, but otherwise he is pretty strong. He is pretty good at keeping characters alive, but his damage is not impressive without Amplify Agony, so he gets a little bit weaker. Sith Eternal, I honestly don't even use him in Conquest because he's not reliable. You really don't want your characters dying off. You want everyone to stay alive in Conquest. But he can solo gas, so I mean, it's decent. It's good to use him. Like Kylo Ren is a little bit weaker in Conquest. again, because he has the same problem as Sith Eternal. He's not good at keeping his team alive. Forget turn meter builds with him. If you want to run a turn meter build, he's going to kill his whole team very fast. So, I mean, he's good to get you through. If he's your only one, you can make it work, but you really want to avoid turn meter at all costs. Next up, we got GOTB, and it's kind of hard to evaluate because light side is so hard and dark side is so easy. But even so, we got kind of one of each rating at least from each side, light side and dark side. Lord Vader and JMK are the ones I feel the safest to 4v4 in all waves. For dark side, you're pretty much only worried about phase 4. So this could be renamed either light side GOTB or phase 4 of dark side TB. But yeah, I feel the safest with Lord Vader to clear fully. Jabba doesn't have Leia or Lando available to him, so he suffers. He might be even lower, but I haven't used him yet. So I don't know. That's kind of opaque to me. Supreme Leader Kylo, he's the one I'm most worried about dying or not getting a 4v4 in GOTB Phase 4 because his whole team tends to get weaker because of turn meter gain, and you got to use like different leaderships to get him through. Some people use like Bounty Hunters. Crew is also not a good one, and he is good, so he does merit the 7, but he doesn't get higher than that. Jedi Master Luke and Rey are quite strong. You're only really worried about wave 1 with Rey. If you get outside of wave 1, you can really take it away with her resistance team. I actually like to use Dash with her in TB as well. There's no Datacrons playing there, but I just love Dash with her. That unavoidable AoE, that triple hit on the basic is really good at taking out droids. And then JML, you know, he's honestly kind of under Luke, but so he's not leading, but you really need his speed to get the jump and nerf the other team's speed. So he's an 8. He's very strong. I am not worried about getting a 4v4 with him. It's a pretty sure thing. So he really deserves his 8 to me. And this with Eternal Emperor, he's pretty safe to get through as well. I haven't really had problems, and it's not really a problem with his whole team dying off because as long as you beat the wave, it's great. And his insta-kills are very helpful in GOTB. And then JMK, I don't think I talked about it as much, but he's great as well. He can work well with or without Cat. He's great for those Galactic Republic Jedi missions, so that gets him a little bit higher as well. And I also feel very safe to 4v4 with him. So that's my evaluation. He gets a 9. So yeah, 2 9s, 3 8s, 2 7s. All right, so now we got the Sith raid. We got a lot of GLs that can solo it, and you see those characters are 8s and 9s. Rake kind of solo it, but she's a 6. I'll get into that. So there's a couple reasons you get a 9 for soloing the raid instead of an 8. It's if you can like undersize it, or you can mostly put it on auto. Lord Vader can both do it with, I think, just a 3-man team, and he can auto it after a certain point. Like once you get to the middle of phase 2, you can put it on auto and get through a lot of times. You can auto a lot of the Sith raid with Jabba, and I only know that because of the playbook. He's got a video on it, which is great. Greedo starts putting out incredible damage under Jabba in this raid. Supreme Leader Kylo Ren, you can't auto it, but he can 3-man it. He's the original 3-man solo, which was years ago at this point. And the raid is still viable because it's not simmed, and it has way better rewards than C-Pit. JMK, he only gets an 8 because him and Rey both rely on Cat to solo the raid. If you have Cat, you know, it's definitely better with JMK, so he gets an 8 instead of a 6. And for Rey, she gets a 6 because her solo, it can happen without her. Like, the way it happens, it can happen without her. You don't need Galactic Legend Rey, I don't think, to solo with Cat. There's other ways to do it without even a Galactic Legend. So that's why she gets lower. Her solo is completely dependent on Cat. Same with Kenobi, but Kenobi's is way easier. So that's just how I look at it. And Sith Eternal, you know, let me know if this is unjustified too. He doesn't do much in the Sith raid at all because he requires... he's not even getting to his ultimate a lot of times because his sides die so fast. And he just doesn't have great damage output. And Jedi Master Luke, he at least has a bunch of amazing Jedi to go with him to put out good damage. And he can't solo, but I think he can put in some pretty impressive runs in that raid. All right, next up we got C-Pit, worth 1, as I noted earlier. I'm kind of going to go from the best to the worst. As far as what I've seen, as far as damage potential, JMK has the highest damage potential with Cat. He can get pretty high, like in the tens of millions, where everyone else is kind of lower than that. The best I've seen is Lord Vader. He can get like over 4 million in some phases, which is very substantial for this raid. And Slicker, Rey, and Jabba are kind of tied at 7. They can all do quite a lot. Rey gets a little bit of a bump because she is great in Phase 4. And I don't know what she does with Jawas anymore, or Jawas, but that used to be one of the best Phase 1 teams. What was actually even better was her with clones, in my opinion. You could get like 20%. And Supreme Leader Kali, he used to be the king of the raid because he could solo Phase 1, but they completely changed that. But I wouldn't trade to go back to those days. The C-Pit was horrible when it came out. You had to have your whole guild be online at the same time, which was a huge hassle, and hold it at the same time. Everyone released their damage at once, and it was just a huge pain. If you weren't there, be thankful you weren't. Everyone was on Discord and had to report their percentages, like, oh, I got 5%, I got 6%. Okay, we got 100, go release. So that was awful. Right now it's much better, even though he's not as good anymore. And then C and JML, they can get some good damage as well. They can get over 1 million, maybe over a couple. But it's pretty solid, you know, so most of these are just kind of middling for this raid. But JMK and Lord Vader are a little bit better in this one. And now we're up to the Assault Battles and Extras, which, you know, Rey is the only one that doesn't have an Assault Battle available to her, but I did give her at least a 4 instead of like a 2 or a 1 or something, because she's pretty good in Galactic Challenges. If you don't have the proper team that's for that Galactic Challenge available, she's pretty good at finishing all the battles herself. But this is not just a Galactic Challenge category, this is mainly Assault Battles and then some extras. And most of these characters are 7. They have an Assault Battle available to them. They can get through. Lord Vader is 8 because he has 2 major ones that he can help out with, whereas the others I don't believe they do. It's all limited to 1. Like I don't think there's a Galactic Republic Assault Battle for JMK. And Jabba gets a 9 here. This is where he shines the most, and it's a good reason to want to get him is because you get a lot of free stuff with that Smuggler's Run 2 event. If you do it twice, it's enough to take 2 mods from 5 dot to 6 dot, which is awesome, and then you get other slicing stuff and the calibration materials, which is great. You know, it might be a little underrated, it might be a little overrated, but I think it's great, and that's what bumps him up to a 7. He also has an assault battle he can do. There's the bounty hunter one, although I don't know how he does in it, because it's been so long since people didn't just sim it. The challenge tier 3 got completed a while ago with Piet and Imperial Troopers. But still, I think he deserves a 9 here. So the overall rating for PvE is 7.67 for Jabba, 8.11 for Lord Vader, 8.22 for JMK, 4.66 for C, 7.33 for JML, 6.78 for Slicker, and 7.33 for Rey. And you know, it might be surprising to people because Slicker used to be considered like the PvE king. And you know, if you look at his rate, he still is one of the best in HSDR. I gave him a 9 there, but he's not the best in the pit raid. In PvE is not synonymous with heroic Sith raid. It kind of felt like that for a while, but I think the most important is conquest, and he suffers there. Maybe you should get a 6. I don't know, but I don't like using him in conquest if I have other stuff available. I prefer a lot of non-galactic legend teams over him, especially for this one, since he's not featured. So that's where he takes a hit to Rey. But Rey and Jedi Master Luke really shine in PvE, mainly because of Conquest, which I weighted as most important. And they do pretty well on other stuff like GOTB. So that is the score for now. And we got one more set of categories before we get to the overall score. Okay, and our last set of categories is ease of acquisition, which is ease of access and requirement quality, and these are both rated at a 2 times rating, which means we don't really have many 1 times ratings in the whole thing, but this is quite important. And even though this is not a prescriptive list of who to go for first, you know, it's important. Like, you need to decide which legend to go for based on what comes with it, whether it's easy to get them or they have quality, and they don't always line up, as you'll see here. But for ease of access, we get kind of a speckling of values. I think C is probably the easiest to get. He doesn't require a ton of crazy legendaries. He requires less relics, a lot less gear than a lot of others. And then Rey and Kylo are also pretty easy. People tend to go for Kylo over Rey because he can solo the Sith raid and his fleet is better. And that's an interesting point. I'm not really considering ships. I know Arnold T101 did in his review, and I think he did a great review, by the way. And I just went a different direction with going higher numbers instead of lower. I'm not considering the exact same things like ships. Galactic Legends don't actively play a part in ships. It's just the requirements have ships. But I am considering that in the requirement quality. But these are pretty equal to get. You don't have to completely finish their ship, the First Order or Resistant Capital ship to get them. And they have less requirements and they have lower relic requirements because they were the first two. It's still a steep ask, but they're still kind of equally easy to get. And then JML and Jabba are pretty similar. I thought I was going to give Jabba a higher rating until you realize he requires Jedi Knight Luke, which is almost like a mini Galactic Legend on his own. So that severely hurts him. Other than that, he's got some pretty forgiving requirements because he doesn't require any R8s. But neither do any of these other four, the first four. They don't require any R8s. The only R8s required are with JMK and Lord Vader. But I still gave Jedi Master Kenobi a better rating for ease of acquisition because he doesn't require another super legendary to get. That would be Lord Vader requires that. He requires gas. So Jedi Master Kenobi is still decently easy to get. He's a good target for like a second Galactic Legend or something. But what dings him a little bit is he needs Watt. So that's pretty difficult because that takes a long time. It's a guild territory battle exclusive character. But then Lord Vader is by far the hardest. He requires 4 R8s. Just a lot of tough stuff to get. So maybe this is a little harsh on him, but he is not easy at all to acquire. He has the most relics, the most gear, so it's pretty unforgiving. And he also requires gas, and gas is like a super requirement because he has tons of his own requirements as well. So not easy to get Lord Vader at all. So we got requirement quality, and the worst here is Rey, in my opinion. The Resistance is a pretty weak faction, and that's most of her whole requirements, just like the whole Resistance faction. And her ship is worse than Kylo's ship, but I think they both have bad requirements. Kylo gets a bump because I do like First Order better than Resistance as far as their capability in PvP and such, and they have a better fleet, but it's still not amazing. I think it's overrated. Him as the first farm, I definitely think it's overrated. So the Eternal Emperor has kind of comparable requirements to SLKR, but you got Piet in there, you got Darth Vader. I think you got much better standalone characters that come out of it. And Jabba, other than his team, he gets one good team out of it. You got Jedi Knight Luke, which most people already have for Jedi Master Luke. And then you got a bunch of crap units. You got Jawa, you got Mob Enforcer, Gam Guard. And they kind of work with him a little bit, but you're not really getting much out of it other than his own team. So that's worse to me. It's 5. I could see people arguing for higher, I'm sure. Lord Vader and Jedi Master Luke, pretty good requirements. JML has a lot of great stuff for a lot of different teams. He's got the bulk of the CLS team. You got like Han and Chewie in there. You got Mon Mothma. You got C-3PO. Just pretty solid requirements. He doesn't have a ton of throwaways. Even the worst characters like Biggs and Wedge, they have ships, which can be kind of useful. Wedge actually has a little bit of use, but Biggs' ship is pretty good. Lord Vader has honestly great requirements, and also I just forgot to mention that Luke is a huge reason why he's an 8 as well. Lord Vader has high quality requirements, even though it is hard to get. The whole Bad Batch team is in there except Omega, so that's a great team. He's got Padme. He's got some other stuff. It's kind of hard to think of it right now, but I know that it is pretty strong. And then I think JMK has the best overall. He's got a lot of stuff. For Lord Vader, gas. Gas is a huge thing as well. But Jedi Master Kenobi has a lot of great stuff. You got like Grievous. You got Grandmaster Yoda. You got Cad Bane, which came in handy for his ship. You got a lot of other stuff. So I think of that as a 9. And, actually, a lot of the Jedi councils here, you got Qui-Gon, who turns out to be amazing with his Omicron. You got Shaak Ti, who is a great leader for the clones. You got the Negotiator. You got Mace Windu. You got Magna Guard is great. Wat Tambor. So he's got really strong requirements. Wat Tambor is like a really high tier character in the Journey Guide alone. So it's kind of like Gas or Jedi Knight Luke. So Jedi Master Kenobi has probably the best requirements overall. And what are we doing? Okay, acquisition. So the total score, he does score the highest for acquisition. JMK does. The worst is Lord Vader and Jabba. Lord Vader is mainly because his ease of access is crap. Jabba is because he's just kind of middling for each. Sith Eternal and JML are pretty strong in the middle, but for different reasons. JML is because he's got quality, and Sith Eternal is because he's got ease. And then Kylo edges out Rey just a little bit, giving a 6.5 to him and a 6 for her. And now what we've all been waiting for, the final verdict. I'll be starting in the bottom right with the worst and leading up to the best. But the worst, sadly for him, is Sith Eternal Emperor with a 5.36 rating. It's kind of sad that a Galactic... I mean, this is compared to all Galactic Legends, because he's an amazing character in his own right, obviously. But compared to other Galactic Legends, he just doesn't have as much going for him. Even though he's easy to get, he still falls this low. He's not great in PvE. He has a lot of problems in PvP. And I saw a Reddit thread... recently in the past week arguing why he needs a full rework because he is so bad as a Galactic Legend, and I agreed with most of the points in it. So it's not too surprising that he ended up this low, and he's mostly everyone's clear choice for worst GL. Next up we got Jabba, and I don't think anyone should jump on me just yet for this because rank 6, 5, 4, they're all pretty close. Like, it's kind of like C is in his own tier in the bottom. There's kind of like a low tier, a mid tier, which is a lot of stuff, and then like a high tier as far as the Galactic Legend goes. But he's solid all around. He's not like a world beater though. There's plenty of other stuff better than him in each game mode, and you get a lot of goodies with him. But his requirements are nothing that I'm enthusiastic about. In PvP, he does have some problems. He's pretty much mainly defense right now, which isn't bad. I think I could evaluate him higher if I had him. So let me know where you think I might have misstepped with him, because it's highly likely I made several missteps. Next up, we got Jedi Master Luke, and it's a very close match between him and Jabba. He's 6.88, only 0.04 higher, which is extremely close. And it makes me sad to have him in the bottom 3 out of Galactic Legends, because he's honestly probably my favorite. I love using him. I love that he takes a ragtag team of Jedi. It makes them all hit like trucks. He's great in Conquest, so I use him a ton there. Even at low stamina, he still gets the job done a lot of the times. And he's decent at PvE because of Conquest. He kind of suffers from raids and suffers from defense a lot in PvP. So that's why it knocks him down a little bit, but he's still amazing. And they're all amazing, of course. Next up, we got Supreme Knight Kylo Ren. And I think people probably won't like this. They won't like that he's 4th, and he's beneath Rey. I haven't shown where Rey is, but you can probably guess. But he, PvE is not just Sith Raid. And I alluded to it earlier, but people used to think of him as the best PvE Galactic Legend, and that's because he could solo the Sith Raid. But that's not what PvE is. He has some troubles in TB, he has troubles in Conquest. He's limited on defense and PvP, so he takes a little bit of a hit, but it's still very close, 6.92. So he's got 0.04 difference between him and JML, which is the same difference with Jabba. They're all very close. They're all within 1, 2, or within 0.1 of each other. So none of these are bad. They're all amazing. I know I keep saying that. And Rey, I'm sure people will say I overrated her because of Dash and the Datacron, which, I probably did. But I want this rating to be an accurate reflection of right now, which is the end of November 2022. And she does a lot in Conquest, PvE, different modes. She doesn't have an assault battle, but she's great in PvP right now. And that really lifts her. She's kind of better in PvP than even Kylo in a lot of respects. I forget what the rating was for them, but they were pretty close. But Conquest being so important, she is much more important. And then second, should be no surprise, got Lord Vader. and I consider him to be in like the high tier of Galactic Legends. Thanks in large part to his Datacron, but you know, he does good in PvP without it. He can solo raids. He's the second best in the Sea Pit raid. He's got quality requirements, even though they are very hard to get. And his strength in PvP really just propels him this high. Mainly defense, he's extraordinary at defense, and he's good at offense too, but no one uses him. So I definitely think he deserves the 7.88. I don't know how far he will fall without his set, but it will be pretty substantial, and I think it will deserve a re-evaluation at that point. And then no one should be surprised that the best Galactic Legend is Jedi Master Kenobi. It's pretty much a consensus agreement at this point, and he gets an 8.32, which is very high. He's the only one above 8. He's almost like 0.5 above Lord Vader, and Lord Vader's like 0.6 above Rey. So the gap between Kenobi and Lord Vader is huge, and then the gap between Lord Vader and everyone else is pretty huge as well. And then like the lowness of C is even bigger than the gaps between like JMK and like Rey, for example. So, you know, C really struggling, and JMK is just dominating. He's near the best in every game mode, PvP, PvE, you name it. Quality Galactic Legend, and, you know, he's one of my favorite characters in the Star Wars universe, so I'm glad he is this good. I think it is a good and accurate depiction of the Star Wars universe, how this lays out, except Palpatine really needs to be better. He's like the ultimate evil in the universe. You know, Jabba is kind of weird to me that he's even a Galactic Legend. But there you go. That is my ranking. So yeah, let me know how you disagree. I'm sure disagreements will abound. I mean, I think 50 people could do this, and we get 50 different results and ratings, different orders all over the place. So I'd love to hear from you. I do like Rey being high, although I see that probably being a big point of contention for a lot of people, and maybe Jabba being low. Who knows? But let me know how you would disagree in the comments. Love to hear from you, and I hope to see you next time.